ship them back, or you were in charge of guarding them?
There's a long story. I would rather tell you something if you would disconnect that for a moment.
Oh.
I don't think this ought to be on tape, but I can tell you either way if you want me to tell it.
Okay, so I'll put it on. But you know what? So I'll finish, as long as it's taping well, we'll tape, and then if there's a pause again, then you can tell me.
They were,
But,
the Germans were brutal in the fact that
you can go ahead and talk. I'm just making sure that it's okay. You can go ahead and talk.
they,
Would you rather not say this on tape?
yes or no, I'll tell you something, then if you want to put it on tape, put it on tape. It'll be your opinion on that. You shut it off now?
Yeah.
Where's Joey though?
Have to get something.
Okay, we're back on tape. So what happened when there was a lull in the fighting? Did you have to dig in?
Oh yeah, foxholes, we made. In fact, we would use, many times, we would use the same foxholes that the Germans did. In fact, they did a better job. They designed, we would dig a plain hole and dig it out as fast as we could. But they would design it very neatly. And so we would occupy the same positions that they had.
So you were basically, when there was a lull in the fighting, you were guarding the front line, positions, and you would be down under the ground in a foxhole.
Right.
Okay. And you were fighting with the same 8-man unit that you had changed.
Except once in a while you had replacements. Guys were wounded, and some of them were killed.
And how was your gun moved?
Well, we had by Jeep.
It was towed by Jeep.
Oh, by Jeep, sure.
Okay, and then you would stop, fire, move on to the next position.
Exactly.
Okay. So how much?
And what we carried was armor-piercing shells, because after all, what we had to use them was against tanks.
And so your job was to knock out tanks that would come along.
Right.
And when you so how much time were you fighting in Normandy?
I came in on the 11th, and we were out of there. My unit was out of there about July the 13th, 15th, around the middle of July.
So about 5 weeks.
Yeah, about that time we were taken out.
And during those 5 weeks, you saw continuous action, daily action.
Right along, sure. Then we were relieved. We came back to the beach, Utah Beach, taken back by boat to England. We came back to Southampton, England, and they were preparing us again. Replacements, new men came in, new equipment came in, and we started training for the next mission.
Okay, and you didn't know what the next mission was going to be?
No idea.
Okay. The next mission, as it turns out, was Holland.
No, that was an active mission, but we had a dry run, what we call dry run. They would take us to the marshy areas, prepare us. Now, the next thing that we had was to capture the city of Liège in Belgium. And we were taken into the marshy areas, also against tables, maps lined out where all the parachute regiments would come in, where the gliders. I understand that the city of Liège was all of lakes, a lot of lakes surrounding the area, and we had to capture a lot of bridges, and so that the British and Canadian Army that would follow behind would be able to cross quickly into that part of the area, Liège, Belgium. And I remember it was on a Sunday morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning, they woke us up. And, another thing, before we went on, we were taken to the marshy areas, and we were given the 3 meals a day, regular meals. But before we would leave, we knew what was happening. A day before, they would feed us 3 meals of steaks for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You had steaks. Well, we knew that they're building us up because we're going in with K rations.
And that's what you had eaten all through Normandy, was K rations?
No, they dropped this food later on. They would drop this food, see. Now, in this marshalling areas, they were telling, as I said, they were training us to capture the city of Liège in Belgium.
Okay, this is August of '44.
Right, in August. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, they woke us up, get ready, pack, take us out to the field, and we're put into the gliders and the C-47s. The men are loaded, paratroopers loaded, ready to get in. We're sitting there till about maybe about 7 o'clock in the morning. We sat there about 4 hours. Nothing's happening. Finally, they tell us to dismount. We come out, and they say, fall in formation, and then we hear General Taylor gets on the hood of a Jeep, and he says, break ranks. This is like about 10,000 men. break ranks, and come forward. So everybody started walking. Yeah, this is 10,000 men. And he gets up on a bullhorn, and he says, I'm awfully, these words, I can't remember the exact words that he said, but I'll give you an idea. He said something out. He says, I'm awfully sorry to give you some bad news. What's happening? He says, Patton overran our positions this morning, and he says, I'll give you, he captured the city of Liège, he says, but I guarantee you, I'll give you another opportunity to get a crack at the Hun.
Mm-hmm.
And with this, 10,000 men yelled out, boo! He didn't want to go.
They were happy that Patton
Right,
beat you to it.
Patton went in.
Yeah.
Patton went in.
That was a godsend.
Yeah.
So we were saved there. Well, we had, I'll never forget the fact that Bobby has it at home in scrapbooks. We had Belgian money, that the Allied money, that made invasion of money and
Yeah.
Belgian money and all that. Well, that was canceled. So they took us back to our base camp, which is in Reading and Newbury in England. And we continued, we got some passes, we started training again. And a few weeks later, we're taking to the marching areas again. And then they start telling us this is for Holland. We're going to invade Holland.
Marching areas, you call them?
Invade,
No.
marshalling, M-A-R-S-C-H, a marshalling area.
Oh, marshalling areas.
Marshalling
Marshalling
That's what they call
areas. I
it,
see.
marshalling area.
Okay.
So we are closed in,
Right.
guarded by MPs, nobody can come in, no one can go out, because after all, that's the whole military secret system
Right.
where we're going, you see.
So you're preparing now for the invasion of Holland.
Right.
And just to give a little background, this was a big plan, what became known as Operation Market Garden,
Right.
where the idea was to have the British 1st Airborne buttressed by a Polish regiment,
Right.
and the US 82nd Airborne and the US 101st
You
Airborne
got it.
all drop in over
Right.
Holland to seize the whole corridor in southern Holland up to and over the River Rhine
Right.
at Arnhem.
To the Ruhr Valley.
And then, so that Montgomery could break through into the
Exactly.
Ruhr, and
You got the whole drift there.
so the idea was that the airborne operation, which was called
Market.
would take place first, and then the tanks would come
Got it.
over and hopefully within 48 hours link up at Arnhem.
That's right.
And it turned into it was
Disaster.
basically a disaster because it was an intelligence failure. They didn't
Right.
realize that they were dropping into 2 SS Panzer divisions.
Right, right.
But so the 101st job was to seize the
first part of it.
westernmost part of the corridor
Right.
nearest to Belgium,
Right.
around the area of Eindhoven.
Right, right.
So you went in, I guess, on the first wave
The first wave.
of
right.
gliders.
Right, right.
Took off on a Sunday, I believe,
On
in
a
September.
Sunday, right, September the 17th.
17th, 1944.
Right. You got it.
And did you know the details of the operation at the time?
Oh, yeah, we were training in the marching area, where they would tell us, we knew everything. We knew where we were going to go, what bridges to take and everything, where we would land and all that. We knew exactly, everything was laid out, it was very clear. Now, as far as the 101st, the 82nd, our mission was successful.
Right.
We succeeded doing what we did. We did more than what we were supposed to do.
Right.
But the British failed because of the lack of intelligence up there. That's
Yeah, this is all described in the book, A Bridge Too Far.
And, and there's more to it than that. They were very,
Got anything working?
they were very slow. The British and Canadian armies were very slow in coming through. Even in our sector where we were, which was clear for them, it was unbelievable. They would stop and take time to drinking tea. The
Yeah.
whole thing would stop.
This is all described in the book. It sounds like the British airborne operation was a big success, and they succeeded in capturing the bridge, at least
Right.
one end of the bridge. But the armored operation took a lot
Did-
longer
did
than it
come
was
in,
supposed to
did
come.
come in,
British,
did come
I guess 34 was.
Now, as I told you what happened, we got, so I came down in Ghent, Belgium with the glider.
Yeah, unintentionally.
Yeah,
It was supposed to land in Holland, but you, I guess, got lost and
Wandered off
crash
and we
landed
crashed
in
in,
Ghent,
right.
Holland, in Ghent, Belgium.
Right, Ghent, Belgium.
And that was Allied occupied territory.
Yeah, the British and Canadians were occupied because that's where the troops were ready to go through, see?
And you came to, and there was
So,
a monk looking over.
yeah, right, when I came through, he was giving me the last rites. I was laid out, I was knocked unconscious. He came,
And this is when you told them that you weren't. What did you say? You weren't dead and you weren't a Catholic?
no, I didn't say anything to him. I was knocked unconscious. When I came through, all I saw was a big black umbrella. But basically, it was his big black hat. But to me, it looked like a big umbrella, you know. I came through. But, well, as I said, we were taken to the British, I think it was Canadian Field Hospital. And there they treated me, and then they patched me up. And they gave us a Jeep and a trailer, 9 of us. And we went from, they gave us a map, directions, how to go, how I remember. I know we went to Brussels or we went to Antwerp. In fact, when we came into Brussels, the Jeep, we could hardly move through. The crowds were so tremendous. They had seen the British, they had seen Canadians, they had seen the Germans, but they had never seen Americans. See, anybody that goes up in the air has the American flag. In other words, like infantry coming through, they don't have the American flag on it. From the air, if you dropped in, then they'll know that you're American. So we had the American flag sewn on our arm. And they said they thought this was the vanguard of the American army coming through. And the crowds gathered around, and finally they took us to the town mayor.
This is in Brussels.
This is in Brussels, see?
Mm-hmm.
And the mayor comes out, he speaks English, he congratulates us and everything else. He doesn't know what happened. And one woman walks over to one of the fellas, and don't forget, we were still armed. We had 4 grenades, each one of us, strapped to our uniform. This fellow, he has one of the grenades by the hand, his crotch is hanging down like this, his pants, and she walks over and she says, "Bulletproof material?" He says, "Lady, if you hold it long enough, I'll show you how waterproof it is." See, these are the colorful parts of what took place in the army.
Okay, so
So,
this is all on your way to rejoin your outfit
Right.
in Holland, around the area of
Wow.
the area of Eindhoven.
we go on, and they gave us the map, and we're following the map. And as we go through, we see whole British Canadian armies, their tanks and everything else. And to our bewilderment, we're saying, they gave us maps where to go across the Albert Canal to get into Holland. But where the hell are they? You know, to
Right.
ourselves, we say, where they? And we crossed through one place where you see the trees have been bombed, they're still smoldering. In other words, you knew there was a battle fought here recently. You know, you see tanks, armored vehicles knocked out. And we're going through there, and all of a sudden we heard, "Hey Yank, and and then we see helmets coming up. They're down in the trenches in the hole. The Welsh Highlanders, they had a battle there about 3 days before in that whole area leading up to the Albert Canal. And that's the map where the British are supposed to go through, and that's where they gave us directions where to go through. And that's how we went across with nothing.
How did you get across the water?
There was some bridges that were still intact.
Ah.
We went across the Albert Canal. We came in Eindhoven, but the 101st had moved on already. We had gone on to Zon, Z-O-N or S-O-N they call it, to the next town. And that's where we joined them. So when I came in, these guys see me with one patch over the eye. And they said, "What the hell happened to you?" And I told them, I says, "You ride a crash, you know, happy." They need every man around. They had a lot of fighting in Eindhoven. Every man. What do you think they put me on? A BAR.
Which is?
BAR is a gun that has 50 rounds of ammunition. It's on a tripod, and you lay on the ground on a tripod. You use one eye. So all I need is one eye. I use one eye. Every man for himself.
Yeah, basically, as you were saying before, you could have gone back to England, but you chose not to in order so that Bernice wouldn't get a notification that you were missing in action. And with how many men did you rejoin your unit? How many of you were there who made it trek through to?
Oh, I went through. There's 9 of us.
All nine of you.
us. Yeah. There were some other groups later on that came in too that had come down, but the group that I was with, there was not.
And you had your personal weapon and some grenades and ammunition.
Well, we carried with us as carbines, but they were folding stock. Or they strapped to your side. You opened it on the side. You know, your stock was almost like the shape of a hanger, like a metal hanger.
Yeah.
Folding stock.
And most of the trek you were doing on foot or in vehicles?
Well, on foot, or usually sometimes if you were lucky enough, you got onto a Jeep or a trailer.
Okay, this is all friendly territory. It was had already been conquered.
Sure, But when I joined them, they were in Zon. There was a lot of fighting took place.
And so you were involved in fighting there in Zon.
Sure, there was a lot of fighting going on.
Now, was this original injury, is this where you got your Purple Heart?
Yeah, right.
From the injury to your eye when you crash landed? So how much fighting did you see in Holland?
Well, to give you an exact thing, there was 70, I've seen the records, some say 72, some say 73 days of action in Holland, the division, without relief. No relief.
Do you remember, you said that you first went in with your glider on the 17th of September. Do you remember the date that you rejoined the unit in?
I say the 19th of September.
19th. Okay, so 2 days later. And the whole operation ended after about 9 to 10 days. The remaining British soldiers who were trapped on the other side of the Rhine were evacuated. But I guess the corridor.
Oh, the corridor
remained open.
Sure, they were fighting along the whole line there.
Right.
The whole line. The 101st we went from Sanford, we went to several cities before we came up to the 82nd captured a bridge, the Nijmegen Bridge.
Right.
It was a very important bridge. They captured that. Then they moved on. And our elements started coming in. In fact, I served guard duty on the Nijmegen Bridge.
Yeah, the 82nd, so famous heroic operation, they crossed the river.
They were ahead of us. They were ahead of us on that. We came up to the Nijmegen Bridge. That's where that's far. We relieved them from the Nijmegen Bridge. In fact, the Nijmegen Bridge was something. It was lit up at night. You know what? The frogmen were coming in. The Germans sent in frogmen to blow up the bridge. So we lit it up by lights to see the whole water. Everything else was lit up like daylight, almost like a moonlight light that they had going up.
So that you...
Yeah, and then every now and then they shoot up flares to see if any of them were coming in. Sure.
Yeah, I guess that was the bridge that they tried to blow, and an American had already come and cut the wires.
Right.
So you did guard duty there at Nijmegen Bridge.
Yeah, Nijmegen Bridge, and I was in the whole thing up in the city of Beckel. A lot of fighting in there.
Did you see the British tanks passing through
Later on, they came through, but they were slow in going. I mean, it never made sense. I mean, it was like a dragged down thing. You would think they would go through rapidly, and they did.
It was just one narrow corridor. They kept getting stopped up.
Right. Many times they broke through. Many times they broke through the lines, the Germans. Because don't forget, you see, another thing, they made a big issue in the Battle of the Bulge that we were surrounded.
Yeah.
It was nothing new to us.
Because you were basically surrounded in Holland.
We were always jumping in behind the German lines. You follow me?
Yeah.
It was something that was not new to us.
So you fought for about 3 months in Holland? Let's see, September, October...
From September, we didn't come back until November 29th. We came back to France.
And were you relieved? Was the 101st relieved there on the lines?
Yeah, right.
So that whole corridor remained open. The corridor that you liberated in southern Holland remained open through to the end of the war.
That was the southern part of Netherlands, right. That was empty.
That was never recaptured by the Germans?
No, there was reports that the Germans tried to break through, but they never did.
Okay. So you stayed, and I guess that was the time where you got the shoes, the Dutch shoes that you sent back to my father.
And a helmet and something. Yeah, right.
Okay. Do you remember how you got the British helmet? Was it somebody?
Well, I picked up a lot of stuff. In fact, there was one Jewish fellow with me. He said to me, "What happened?" He says, "He picked up all these helmets." He says, "After the war, we're going to open up an Army and Navy store."
So you went back. So in November, you went back to England.
I don't know if we went back to, no, we went to France.
France.
We went back to France, a base camp. We went to a French base camp that we used as in fact, the town was called Montmelon in France. And when we came back, they told us then that we were brought back November 20, I remember the date, November 29th. I know it was a couple of days after Thanksgiving. In fact, what happened was, they brought in a colored outfit as quartermaster to serve us food. And they were giving us on the trays ice cream and turkey and everything. And we couldn't eat much. You know why? Our stomachs had shrunk. We were eating mostly what was dropped to us, K-rations and everything else down the line. In fact, we were getting rations from the British even. They called like 10 in 1. A crate with food for 10 men. They would call 10 in 1 ration. That's what so we were fed from there. So when we came back, we didn't have a hell of a lot of food. I remember coming off one night, maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, off guard duty. We weren't supposed to touch any food from the civilians because they were short of food too. And
This is in France.
this was in Holland.
Oh, still in Holland.
Holland,
Uh-huh.
Holland. And it's looking. So I walked over. Was. So she showed me she had a pot. It looked like some meat was in there. It looked like white. I don't know what it was. It was milk or what. And it was steaming, and I drank it. I was hungry. I mean, you can't live on K rations. And I've got news for you. When we were in Holland, we would see all the chutes, medical supplies, ammunition, food, the wind taking it over to the German lines.
Yeah, that's described in A Bridge Too Far also, that
We were taking.
talk about some
So that's we were
British
short.
soldiers being captured by the Germans, and then the Germans, after they'd already surrendered to the Germans were handing them their own supplies that had been dropped.
So the wind, and
That's
it's heartbreaking to see this thing go off.
So, okay, so you went back, at the end of, you were relieved in Holland, you went back to Montmelon,
Montmelon,
France,
France.
and you were just there training for the next
Well, they were
mission.
training for the next, but we knew there would be no more airborne until the springtime, because during the wintertime, the winds and so on was a dangerous thing to glide. You couldn't control gliders, you couldn't control chutes. In the wintertime, they couldn't be, so we knew nothing would happen until the springtime.
So your one glider drop was in Holland. Your one
In Holland.
combat glider jump
Right,
was
in
Holland.
Holland,
You
right.
had some training jumps, I guess,
Exactly.
runs before, but
Right.
the one combat was in Holland. So, okay, now, the Purple Heart, I remember a story that the Purple Heart was sent back to Bernice
No, it was sent to my brother David.
without any explanation. No,
Oh, I didn't want to tell him about the eye. That's all he had to hear was that I was injured in the eye. So I didn't tell him. I just told him that this is what I had. He didn't know what the wound was.
Oh, but he knew you were well. He got it and he knew you were well.
Right, right.
And he didn't tell Bernice that
Didn't
he got
tell Bernice nothing. In fact, I understand that Carl and Julian Paul were told not to say a word about it.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't until I got home that he gave me the medal. See?
So,
And so when you roll through, I'll show you my medals.
okay.
In fact, my brother said to me many times, he says, I got a medal, what was it, for the Daisy or something? He was a business manager or something, or spelling. He said, I'll trade you for one of your medals. I said, you're better off with yours. Yours is one in gold, mine isn't in gold.
Eastern District High School.
You always give me a login.
Battery's about to stop, but well, until it stops, we'll keep talking. So now the next mission was to march into Bastogne.
Bastogne.
Okay, this is during the Battle of the Bulge
Right.
in
Now
December
we go.
1944.
Right.
The Germans attack, try to push through and create what's called a bulge.
What they were mainly after was to break through the American or the Allied forces that were in that particular area, in the Luxembourg area,
Yeah, in the Ardennes forest.
to get to the port of Antwerp,
Right.
because that's where the American supplies were coming through.
So
Let me give you a briefing. You see, now we're in Montmelon, France, and we're regrouping again. And this is the end of the November.
yeah.
And we're getting in new replacements. We're getting in new equipment, and getting ready for a program. But before we start, we had just come back from Holland, and they had some men were getting furloughs to go to Paris and to go to back to London. And everything was peaceful, as far as we were concerned. We're resting now. Along about December the 15th, 16th, thereabout, in the middle of
16th, the bulge
we
started.
we were wakened that night and told to pack up, get ready, what's happening? And then we heard there was a breakthrough in the Ardennes, somewhere in the area, and they needed the 101st. See?
Yeah.
So we, got packed, so we loaded up in these trucks. We had never gone in trucks. I mean, basically, we were by gliders or parachute, you see. Here we're putting in like infantry, put into trucks. And we're rolling along the highways, we're going through, and as we're getting into Belgium, we see American soldiers going without helmets, without weapons. They're going back, and we're going in.
Yeah, that's
And the
described.
story is that somebody said to one of the MPs on the road, "What's happening?" He says, "I don't know." He says, "All I know is everybody's leaving Bastogne, but the 101st is coming in." See,
Yeah.
that's exactly
I
what
guess
happened.
Eisenhower ordered you in.
Right, to stand, the main
as
thing
a
was to
reserve.
grab the Bastogne. Now, Bastogne was a crossroads, in
Right.
other words, leading to many highways towards Antwerp. In other words, if you got through Bastogne, you had a clear way to get to Antwerp, many roads, several roads leading to Antwerp. And there we were, and eventually, the Germans poured so many thousands and thousands of soldiers in that we were completely surrounded. But we didn't know that. We didn't know we were surrounded, because to us, we were always surrounded. Wherever they dropped us in, we were always surrounded, so it was nothing new to us.
So it was you and the 10th Armored.
No. 10th Armored later came in. They came in. There were a few other elements that were trapped with us. There's some armored units that were also trapped in there.
Was it the whole 101st?
All
that was the
101st,
best time? All 10,000.
Yeah.
And that's where you were on Christmas Day when you get the famous
Right.
memo where
Yeah,
the
now-
ultimatum
right.
for surrender.
Now,
and
I have the original copy that was given to us on the field the day after, where McAuliffe, did you ever read the story
Yeah,
about
sure,
McAuliffe?
sure.
Surrender.
You got a note. You got an ultimatum to surrender or be
Surrender,
annihilated, and
right.
he answered nuts
Right.
and circulated that
Now,
to
basically, he didn't say word guns. He used a vulgar word, a four-letter word to the Germans. And so one of the colonels went back and gave his reply. He said nuts, but McAuliffe didn't actually say that.
And then ultimately Patton broke through.
Patton
and-
broke through, right.
And what was going on at the time? You were dug in or in Bastogne,
Oh, yeah,
and,
sure.
and it was freezing.
No supplies. Well, you had snow about over your knees. On that, we just had everybody. The only worst part was this: those that were injured, those that were hit, the men. The field hospital was overrun by the Germans. They captured the whole field hospital with the surgeons and everything else. In fact, I knew one fellow that I was friendly with later on in civilian life that I knew, Doc Freilich. He was a dentist, and he was at the aid station. I asked him, I said, "What did you do at the aid station?" He says, "Well," he says, "they had to stitch up the fellas." He says, "I did stitching." See? And they overran that whole thing, and he escaped. He was able to escape and get back to the rest of the outfit. But the others were taken. They had, in fact, McAuliffe sent out the message to Supreme Headquarters. He says, "Send me surgeons, drop in surgeons." He says, "I need them."
So
There was no hospital. They took the injured to the regular hospital that they had in Bastogne.
but you weren't on the attack. You were just defending the city.
Just defending the city.
You were digging
Right.
and
Now,
staying in
McAuliffe's
foxhole.
message later on said, he says, Patton didn't come to our rescue. He says, "We were defending ourselves." He said, "We feel sorry for the poor bastards," referring to the Germans. He says, "I feel sorry for them."
Yeah.
But
So ultimately, when did you get out of Bastogne?
we were relieved from Bastogne about January the 10th, 15th, somewhere around then. Then we were told to remove